And WCW told me to made me an offer, so I took it. The only reason I did was to be closer to my kids. That's all. Had nothing to do with WWF. I mean, WWF was here. WCW.
Right.
I mean, it's like playing T-ball to the Yankees. I mean, there was no comparison. It was a very poorly run company.
I guess, how were you initially approached by WCW?
I was home and I got called to do the Sunday night show. Eric Bischoff called me. I said, sure. So I came in. He gave me an offer. One price to do one show. And then when Jesse quit, I started doing Jesse's stuff. So he gave me a raise to do that. He gave me 3 raises. So I had no trouble with Eric. He wasn't the brightest guy when it comes to wrestling. But he gave me 3 raises, so he said, okay.
What were your initial thoughts of Eric Bischoff as a person and stuff?
Eric Bischoff was a used car salesman that just happened to be involved in wrestling.
How would you compare him and Vince? Or is there no comparison?
Walmart, Neiman Marcus. I mean, there's no comparison. There really isn't. First of all, whoever made the decision, whoever came up with the idea to beat Goldberg, that was bad.
Yeah.
But whoever okayed it, that was worse. Whether it's Eric's fault, whether it's Dr. Harvey Schiller's, or whoever it was, that's what killed the wrestling business.
He was the next big thing. They didn't even realize it.
Mark McGuire is a good friend of mine, and Mark McGuire came to Atlanta, and he wanted to meet Goldberg because Mark likes to work out. So McGuire was at the ballpark.
Right.
Goldberg went over to meet him. McGuire ripped his shirt off and rubbed his bat on his chest and went out on his 70 home runs. We had no one from our company there to film it. Vince would have had McGuire at Louisville picking out the wood and the bat.
Right.
He'd have had McGuire getting dressed. He'd have had Goldberg putting on a t-shirt, getting ready. Vince would have produced it. Walmart.
I think one of the big problems with WCW is there was no guy that came from a wrestling background.
There was no money. There was no money that came out of their pockets. Vince is a wrestling company that needs TV to survive. WCW was a wrestling company that just happened to have us on. Eric Bischoff's money was Turner's money. Ted didn't care. Vince's money is Vince's money. When I pay you for something, you better do it. They were giving guys money that you couldn't even believe. Guys that shouldn't have made 50 cents were making $500,000. Fans could see it. It didn't work. It was ridiculous. They never followed up an angle. They never did anything. They would do something and then let it lay. Never.
What were you thinking the night that everything went down between you and Brian Pillman at the Clash of Champions?
That was an accident. See, when you do TV, you can't look into the ring. You have to watch a monitor.
Right.
So I'm watching a monitor. I don't know Pillman. Never met him. He walked behind me and pulled my coat down around my shoulders, just playing.
Right.
But I had neck damage, and I thought it was a fan coming and grabbing me. So I yelled, but I didn't know it was Pillman. Wrestlers are dumb. They think, go mess with the announcers because they're on camera all the time. Don't they ever watch the show? We're only on camera maybe at the beginning, maybe at the end. WCW never put us on that much. They didn't know how. They were stupid. Let's open up as we're getting out of limos. Everybody gets out of a limo today. When you open up like that, you think, have I missed something? You got to start the show. You got to tell who the announcers are. What's coming up? What you're going to see. Make it exciting. That's how I feel. WCW just, it was a television production that had nobody in charge that knew what they were doing. It was pitiful to watch.
Thoughts?
And Tony Schiavone was the worst. Because he didn't like the fans, he didn't like the wrestlers, and he wouldn't tell Mike Tenay and I anything about what was going on. His secret to life was knowledge is power. So he felt if he knew something, he was more powerful than us. Big deal, you know this guy's going over. Who cares? And sometimes they wouldn't tell us what was going on. They said, we want it to be like a shoot. Well, how would you react? So I told him, I said, I wouldn't say nothing. Because we've never seen one. It don't happen. It's entertainment business. They never could understand that. They could not understand that.
They also put you with Steve McMichael, I believe.
Steve McMichaels was up for an Emmy Award when he was doing. Anybody can be up for an Emmy Award. They pick like 30 people, but only like 4 go for it. But he was in a different level when he was doing the television, radio for the Chicago Bears. And he was a Super Bowl champion, all that. And Eric Bischoff just fell in love with the guy because of who he was. But Bobby Heenan cannot do hockey. I can't even say the names. Look at eye charts. I can't do football. I can only do wrestling. McMichaels can do football. He can't do wrestling. Some guys just can't do certain things. Madden can't do wrestling. But they liked him. They wanted a younger and more MTV look. So that's why they took me off and put Madden on. That's a good look.
I want to backtrack a couple seconds. Well, Alright, start over. I want to backtrack a little bit. We were talking earlier on about TV and stuff like that. Now, when Vince changed over his concept of TV, the earlier in the 80s, it was more like, the big guy against the smaller guy, squash matches and stuff like that. And he went to more competitive matches with Monday Night Raw. What's your take on that?
I like that. I never liked I always thought what a squash match was. The guy goes up and gets a beer and goes to the bathroom. He waits to see the interview. Cause nothing to see in a squash match.
Right.
And there's nothing really to see. Because the guy does the same thing all the time. He clotheslines a guy, slams a guy, kicks a guy. That's it. The interview you wanted to see. When Vince changed it around, I thought it made TV better. I thought it gave the fan something at home to see. A lot of people, like Tony Schiavone doesn't like the fans. And Ultimate Warrior, I was talking about him earlier. We had a spot one night where I jumped up and I told him he was going to clothesline me. I said, no, instead of clotheslining me, nail me and then post me. Because I had a bad neck. That way I could do the best I could for you and the product.
Right.
I jump up, he came out of nowhere and just waffled me to the floor. Went back to the dressing room, I asked him, I said, how come? He said, I never know what I'm going to do. I said, well then I never know where I'm going to be. See, what they don't understand is their whole character, their whole image is the ultimate this. I could make him look like a piece of crap so easy. All I had to do was say, slam me in the ring, cover me, and kick out. I could have killed his gimmick. I could have had him hit me with a clothesline and looked at him and gone,
right.
They don't realize they're vulnerable, and we got them. They don't realize that. And the fans don't deserve that. They deserve to have entertainment. I buried my mother, my grandmother, and my loved ones with the money I made off this business. So I owe them something. That's the truth. You can't look at them as marks, as kayfabes. No. There are people that get out of line. There are people that are relatives that get out of line. Relatives are like fish. After 3 days, they stink. Right? And remember, a friend in need is a pest. But no, fans are... They feed us. They do.
Did you also like the concept of Monday Night Raw?
Oh, I loved it.
Live wrestling.
I liked the Manhattan Center where they did it.
Right.
It had a different look, and it was energy in the building, and Vince knew it, and I liked it. I mean, I liked it. Yeah.
And what are your feelings on pay-per-views as far as the wrestling world and stuff? And did you see that as?
I think there's too many now. It's like I think the wrestling TV you see is as good as the pay-per-views. So why buy the pay-per-views when you're watching 52 weeks of good TV? Why pay $50 to see the same thing you're going to see?
Right.
I think when Vince had it like for a year, and there was SummerSlam, Survivor Series was hard.
Right.
Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, I thought that was great.
That was it.
But when he went every month with something, the only one that means anything now is WrestleMania.
It's true.
Really.
Now in WCW, did you still stay in contact with? Obviously, Gorilla Monsoon, you still stayed in contact with, right?
Until he passed away. Until the day he died, his daughter called me the night before he died and said he was checking out the hospital. He wanted to come home. And then she called me in the morning and she said he was gone.
I think he was there with him.
Yeah, because we knew Girl.
And Victor.
And Victor's, I took Victor flew and we drove him to the hospital in Ecuador,
Yeah.
in Willingboro.
And Valerie called me that night and told me. And he was just a great guy. Never had a bad time with him.
Funny story, the first time we ever went to his house to drop him off, we were sitting and I guess his wife was getting us iced tea or something. We're sitting there and Girl was doing the yard work and he's wearing this pink hat.
See him walk
And
past the
he
window.
just walked past the window
On.
and popped in with a weed whacker. We're just sitting there like, it was just
surreal.
the funniest thing.
His bedroom was oriental, with furniture and stuff.
Right.
He told me, he says, she should have married Fuji.
That's great.
The last time, when they threw me out of Raw,
Right.
in where was it? New York, West, where Scullin lives.
I'm not sure.
It's right outside of LaGuardia there.
White Plains.
White Plains. And they threw me out that night. And Vince said, how do you want to leave? I said, well, have Gino throw me out. I said, I'll have a bag that I'll have like lamps in it, I'll have towels and ashtrays, everything the weasel would steal. So Patterson said, why don't you have bras and panties? I said, well, Pat, when you and I pack for the road, I think we pack differently.
Yeah.
So Gino threw me out that night, and then we got in the car, we went back to LaGuardia to the hotel. We got up in the elevator, we got off on the floor together, same floor. I said, well, this is it. We shook hands, and I went to my room, and my room was a basket of fruit. So I called him, I said, hey, you big ape, I got bananas here. He's okay. So he came down the hall, and I gave it to him, we cried for an hour in the hall. That was it.
Getting back to WCW, how were you treated in WCW?
Oh, no respect. I had an idea when Cactus Jack was there with Mankind or Man Pain or whatever
Right.
his name was.
Max Payne?
Yeah, and they were wrestling the Nasty Boys or something. So I suggested, I said, why don't you have Gene open it up? And all you hear is sirens and red lights flashing in his face. And he says, you're not going to believe where I'm at. And just pull back. And he's in an ambulance going to the ring. And Bischoff said, Bobby, you're just an announcer. We'll come up with those ideas. And then that's when I figured it out. Every 2 weeks, cash your check,
Right.
go home. I lost all desire to work. Didn't care anymore or anything. They wouldn't even tell us to finish it sometimes. Sometimes we wouldn't even get a program of what was going on in the show until like the third match. Everyone that was there, except for a few people, shouldn't have been there. They weren't qualified to be in television or to do anything to do in wrestling. They weren't any good. Simple. If all you people watch this now are going to say I'm a jerk, are we in business? Is WCW in business? Why? Because they couldn't do it. They didn't know how to compete with Vince McMahon.
If you were in charge of WCW, what would you have done differently?
I'd have put everybody in one room and roll a hand grenade in there.
All right.
What I would have done is I would have let it go as it was. I would have never bitched at the talent or the television people. You know why? Because they're going to do what they want to do anyway. This way, everybody would say, what's Heenan like? He never complains. So I still get my check every 2 weeks. That's all I care about now. I used to care about the business, how it ran, and what was going on, and how good we looked. I had respect for what I did. You get down there, when your money's not involved and they don't have any money, they don't care. So I don't care. Pay me. I'll go home. Just it.
Do you have any memories that stick out with WCW? Anything that was,
That'd be like asking George Brett when he had that hemorrhoid operation, if he remembered that.
Right. Let's see. I was going to ask you, was it hard to work there due to lack of organization? And obviously.
Yeah, it was. Because I like to work. I really like to entertain. I like to make people laugh. And some people think, well, my style of commentating isn't a whole hard sell heel. Well, first of all, not everybody believes what we do is real. Sometimes you've been in a fight in a bar and you threw a guy in the corner.
Right.
No, it don't happen. And I believe that not everybody believes it's real, so you have to entertain them and make them happy and have a good time. That's what I do. If you don't like it, fine. A lot of guys would tell me sometimes, not a lot of guys, Brian Adams one time told me, he says, we're trying to get over now. We're really serious out there. I felt like saying, well, then maybe you should lay him in. Not make it look like you couldn't break an egg. So, I mean, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Right. Were you ever asked to return to managing in WCW?
Mm-hmm.
And you just didn't want to do it?
No.
Who did they want to put you with?
They didn't say, but they didn't know how to use wrestlers. They weren't going to use me. Plus my neck. I didn't want to bother with that anymore.
Right. How did things change when Scott Hall and Kevin Nash came into the company?
Business improved. Business was really good. I think Scott Hall was a heck of a talent. I think he had some bad advice from some bad people he hung with. But Scott Hall could still be a big player now with WWF. Used the right way. He's not a bad guy. He just gets bad advice from some bad people.
Right.
And Nash was just a big guy, nothing special. But Hall had charisma. He had
right.
When he did the toothpick thing. He didn't like doing that. I told him, I said, just keep doing it. Throw it right towards the camera. He used to do it like that. I said, no, do it like that. He said, well, does it look? I said, don't worry about it. He had no confidence. Then finally he got confidence. Scott Hall he'd be a heck of a talent. But he has to be produced and controlled.
Speaking of you giving advice to guys, did any of the younger guys ever approach you with ideas or trying to seek advice from you?
Yeah, some guys would always ask me. I always try to help anybody. But I told them, I said, this may work for me, may not work for you. And I just told them the logic of it. Whenever you're involved in a match or managing or on air or whatever you're doing, pretend you're doing it for real. And it'll work. I mean, when I managed the guys, I pretended I owned them. I had an investment. When I was in that ring, this guy was going to kick my butt. And what would I do? What would I do if you came after me with a board? Would I shake hands? I'd beg, please don't. I'd pull a ref in front of me. I would do everything imaginable to save my hide.
Right.
It's simple.
Is there any guys that you could say that you were definitely responsible for, as far as getting them over?
Oh, I don't want to take credit for that. I believe whoever got over because they did, with their own talent. If I had something to do with it, then we both did. I didn't get over by myself. I got over with managing people. So. The team of the Valiants, they were useless. They needed me. They were really useless.
Right.
They couldn't talk or walk. They could talk, but at the wrong times.
Right.
And would never say the right things. And they would do the same stupid things in the ring all the time. They were like your honeymoon. The next night's not that good. First time you see him was okay, but
Right. Now in '96, when WCW started to change things around and the business went up, how did Eric Bischoff change behind the scenes, personality-wise?
that's hard to say because he never had any confrontation with anybody. He never talked to anybody. No one there ever said when you were done with a broadcast, good, or that stunk. No one ever said nothing to you. You never knew anything, what was going on. Bischoff acted like he was above everyone else, and he had no time to talk to anybody else. Well, I'd been there since Lou Thesz and seen the Vince McMahons and the people that were important, and it didn't impress me, so I just ignored it. Every 2 weeks, cash a check.
When business started to go down, did anything change, or same?
Oh, no. When business was good, things were the same. No one was nice to you. No one did anything. We were just lucky we had 83 weeks at number one. We were just lucky. And you know why we were lucky? Because remember Vince put on those vignettes about Hogan being old and savage?
Yeah.
All that did was make people tune in and see what we were doing.
Right.
That's what helped us and Goldberg. And then they killed everything. So they weren't smart people.
What would you have done with Bill Goldberg?
Oh, I would have had him go 3,000-0. First of all, he's Jewish. Most of the people in marketing and in television are Jewish people. They've never had a champion. They would run with this guy. They would love him. And I'm not being racist or anything,
Right.
but a Polish guy get over in Warsaw. If he... Kowalski get over there if he was in Poland.
Right.
But, I mean, this would have worked. They've never had a guy like this. Plus, he played pro ball. Plus, he was raw. He didn't know how to work. But what he did was good enough. And he had that look
Yeah, definitely.
that you could build around. And whoever decided to beat him and okayed it destroyed over 200 jobs of people at WCW. People that you don't even know that lost jobs because somebody was playing with the business. They didn't really know. And they didn't really beat Goldberg to help Goldberg or to help the business. They did it selfishly
Political.
to hurt Goldberg and to hurt everybody.
He was definitely the future of the business.
Oh, of course. Of course. I would have had him go 2000. Marciano did. Big deal. But that would have been something to talk about. And you need something to talk about. That was unique.
It was. At any time, did you ever have talks with ECW at all about the
No,
new
never
thing?
did.
And did you ever consider returning to WF?
Yeah. I called Vince when I was done at WCW and told him I was available. And he said, I'll get back to you. And he used me at WrestleMania.
Right. How did that
And
go?
that was fun. That was great. It was like being back in
Last
Hollywood
weekend.
after being on the, in a carnival.
Right.
It really was. Everybody was polite and thankful, and people said "sir," and the production was run well, and it was good. It was really good. I got to see a bunch of old friends and stuff, and it was fun.
Do you think you'll go back?
If the money was right and the timing was right, I don't want to work every day anymore. I don't want to. I got my book coming out. I want to do that. I want to do personal appearances. I want to do commercials. I want to be a spokesperson for a company or something. Wrestling, I don't know if I want to do. I don't think there is going to be wrestling anymore. I really don't see it because people aren't going to buy tickets when they know what's going to happen. That's my thinking.
You think it's just the business is going to go down and
Yeah.
not recover?
Yeah. Plus, I think you need an opposition to make yourself fight harder.
Right.
And I think Vince, even though he owns WCW, it's still the same. And I mean, I hope the family does good with it, but I really see it's going to be a trouble. There's no interest there anymore. To me, there's no interest.
Now, I guess when you were replaced by Mark Madden, how did you find out?
I worked at WCW for 6 years. I missed 2 days. One was my mother-in-law died, and I had to go to the funeral. The other one was I had strep throat, and I called Tony, and I said, I can't talk. And I guess Terry Taylor, everybody went nuts trying to find Madden. And when I came back the next week, then that, what was his name?
Mark Madden?
No, the other guy that was supposed to be a
Hudson?
writer.
Oh, the JR guy who worked with Vince Russo.
Russo.
Ed
Ed
Ferreira.
Fiera,
Oh, Ed was okay, but the other guy was...
Vince Russo.
Right.
Oh, he was just
Huh.
a three-corner guy trying to switch the P underneath the shell on the corner. That's all he was. Three-card Monty. Had no idea for the business. I mean, he thought everything in the business he wanted to change, and he could prove it would draw money. He was a writer for Vince. Believe me. If he came up with 20 good ideas, Vince used one and changed it to what he wanted.
Right.
How did he do with WCW? Nothing.
It was horrible.
Horrible. He was a disgrace.
It wasn't even wrestling when he took over.
Pardon?
The TV wasn't even wrestling anymore. It
No,
was all skits. It was horrible.
it wasn't good. And he thought he could do it, and he couldn't.
I already asked you about Tony Schiavone. We brought him up. I was going to ask you about your favorite and least favorite announcers you worked with.
My favorite was Monsoon
Right.
and Okerlund. He's and Mike Tenay.
How's Mean Gene to work with? Outside the ring.
Good. Yeah, he's good at work. He's funny. You know, you can always get a laugh with a guy with a bald hair and and a mustache who's 5'3".
How did you find out that the WF was buying WCW?
Somebody called me and told me. I knew it was going to happen. I knew somebody was going to buy it because it was going no place. There was no management there or nothing. And I figured if Vince bought it, the only reason he'd buy it was just to own the tapes.
Right.
There's no other reason. Now they're using the underneath guys. It don't work. I'm sorry, I don't think it works. And that keeps me from getting a job at WWF. Tough. That's the way I feel.
How were you treated by the boys when you came back?
Oh, they were great. Oh, yeah. I never met the Dudleys.
Right.
They were good guys. I had fun with them. They were good guys. I liked them. And, you know, Eddie Guerrero's an old friend of mine, and
Right.
Malenko, and the Iron Sheik.
Huh.
He's just a typical fool. And Nikolai Volkov and I, and we were talking, and Hillbilly Jim. And,
Right.
oh, we had a best time. It was fun. It was like somebody pulls a stake out of your heart and you come alive again.
I was going to ask you, you kind of touched on it. Did you see that as a return, as a farewell, or a return?
I looked at it as an opportunity. Whether he's going to hire me or not is up to him.
Right.
Whether I want to work the schedule he wants is up to me. I really don't need the money. I just have to get out of the house because I'm thinking of my wife now as Nicole Simpson. I mean, you just can't be. I've been on the road for 40 years. Now I'm home. You know, I just want to go and do something.
Especially like going back to WCW, what was your feeling like towards like new style wrestling, like Lucha Libre and the Japanese and like the garbage wrestling?
You know, that was okay once in a while. I mean, I thought for the Mexicans what you should do is they brought in 12 guys a night. You should bring in 2 guys and bring in 12 hoods. They all look the same, just switch them.
Right.
Let them do interviews so no one's going to ever know who they are anyway. How many times can you hit a fat guy with a garbage can that don't hurt?
Right.
How many times can you beat a guitar over a guy's head and nobody's hospitalized? I mean, there's some things they did that's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was always brought up when you hit a guy with something, do something,
He's out for a while.
make it mean it.
Right.
Yeah. Or don't do it. But
Who do you feel is single like? Well, who was the main person for the downfall of WCW? If you had to single out one person,
it has to be whoever was in charge, and it has to be Bischoff or Dr. Harvey Scheller. Whoever said, okay, we'll do that. We'll beat Goldberg. We'll give this guy $8 million to do nothing. We'll pay these guys $500,000 for 10 years. Stay home. Whoever made those decisions did it.
do you think that was Bischoff's decision?
I don't know.
No.
I do not know. It wasn't his money. It was Turner's money. I don't think Ted knew where his money was. It was AOL's money. It was Time Warner. Who knew? It was hard to tell.
What were the politics like backstage at WCW with Eric
There
Bischoff
wasn't.
and Hogan and the
Oh.
Nash faction?
Well, you see, I was in the announcer's room. They were always in their room with signs on the door. Do not enter. And they had Donuts Dillinger at the door watching it so no one would...
Okay.
You know what he did as a cop?
What's that?
He was a cop in Sheriff.
Yeah.
You know what he did?
No.
He drove the motorcycle at the funerals. What a danger there. They're dead.
Yeah.
And they're crying. And there's flowers.
Right.
No problem. He drove the motorcycle at funerals. No security. How many times you see guys jump in the ring? But we had signs on the doors, do not enter. So I don't know what went on in Hogan's room or anybody's room like that. I know from Hogan, Hogan always tried to do the most he can for himself
Right.
and the boys in the business. There's a lot of jealousy there. So whatever went on in that room, I don't know about. And no one would tell us, no one wanted to talk about it, and no one cared. It was at that point, at our level, no one even cared what was going on. We just wanted to get done at 11 and go home. It was just a complete bore.
Thoughts on doing the WoW pay-per-view?
That was great. First time I
It's the
ever
old
said
Bobby
it.
Heenan stuff.
First time I ever said a ring sign and looked up a guy's trunks. No, the girls worked hard, and David McLean treated me nice, and
Right.
it was a different experience, and I enjoyed it. It was a lot of guys called me and said, "Why would you do that?" Well, why not? It was fun. I want to have fun. It's no worse doing a WoW than doing a WCW match or any match. It's entertainment. It's not wrestling. There is no wrestling. If you want to see wrestlers, go to IU
Right.
or go to Iowa State. No, this is wrestling, pro wrestling. That's what it is. It's entertainment.
Do you have any thoughts of ever going into radio full time?
Yeah, I'd like to do radio. Yeah, I got a few things in the works I'm trying to do. I want to work with somebody. I don't want to do it by myself. I can't talk for 3 hours.
Right. You need to play off somebody.
Yeah, I want to do that, and I'd like to do that with someone. Like Tanae be a good guy. He's so straight, you know. He's the kind of a guy.
Right.
You know, he makes coffee nervous. You know. But no, he's a very talented guy, though. He writes down everything. He's very prepared, and I like that. I like to rehearse. I don't like to rehearse, but I like to be prepared.
What do you say to your critics that say that your references on commentary over the last few years have been outdated?
Could be, because of you see the same moves. You see the same guys, just different faces. What can you say? Nobody does anything different. Plus, at WCW, they didn't want me to say anything.
Right.
Like Eric told me they had a midget, Mexican battle royal midgets with hoods. He said, "Don't say nothing." Well, how can Bobby Heenan, the character, not say nothing?
Right.
He said, "I said, what happens if I say something?" He said, "Well, they'll all write in." I said, "They can't reach they can't reach the slot. How are they going to mail letters?" So they all got in a ring one time. So I just said, "It looks like a ride at a daycare center." But in the old days, I could talk about Tito. I said,
Right.
things like that. But they didn't want me to do that. They wanted all the emphasis on their talent. They didn't want anybody else over it. And a lot of things I probably did say was outdated. And probably because of the product, I didn't care. That was my own fault, probably, being a lackadaisical. I didn't care. There was nothing going to make me care.
If that battle royal was in WWF in the late '80s, it'd probably be the funniest match in the history of wrestling.
The what?
If that match was in WWF in the late '80s, that'd probably be the funniest match in the history of wrestling.
Oh, Vince would have let me do whatever I wanted?
Thoughts on the combination of Jim Ross and Paul Heyman? Do you still watch TV?
No.
No. Okay.
Jim Ross is very educated to the business. He writes down everything. He does his homework. I like Jim. I worked with him. My last pay-per-view at WWF was in Vegas. And Jim and I and Savage worked. Paul Heyman, I never worked with. I like him as a friend, a nice guy. And this guy's trying to get by in life, make a living. That's all it is.
Do you follow indies at all? Do you watch any of the indie promotions or anything out there? Or
No.
You don't watch anything?
No.
Okay.
No.
How does it make you feel after all the years that you've done for the wrestling, wait, let me reiterate. How does it make you feel after all you've done for the business, and then you're watching the business today, and the managers have been replaced by girls out there with, blonde hair and big tits?
Well, I didn't do anything for the business. What I did was for me. And what I made off the business and what I contributed was just me. What anybody else does is their business. If a promoter wants to use somebody with big boobs and a nice butt, fine. When we use a guy bigger than me, shorter, taller, fine. I had a choice a long time ago to get an education and go on to medical school or law school or trip and distract.
Right.
I chose this.
Memory of doing the Arsenio Hall show.
Oh, that was fun. That was fun. My wife stole everything out of there. They bring you a big basket in the room of fruit and hams and everything. So as we leave, my wife picks it up. I said, "Leave it." She said, "No, it's for us." I said, "They'll think we never did anything like this. Don't pick it up. They'll think we're the Valiants. Don't leave it. Leave it."
Right.
So we get back to the room that night, about 12 o'clock at night. I said, "Boy, I wish I had some of that food." So she took everything out of her purse.
That's great. That's like my mom.
Oh, yeah. So now, the next time I did a scenario, I told him my wife stole everything. He said, "Well, that's for you."
Right.
He sent me a basket the next day with everything in it and a doll for my daughter with a jacket on and everything.
Right.
Class guy.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Did you ever have any heat with anyone outside the wrestling business for anything you've ever said?
No, just that time Sid told me not to mention he was the dullest fork in the drawer.
Right.
So, but the guys don't understand. Like Liberace always said, "I don't care if they spell my name wrong, as long as you say it."
Right.
And no, I never had any heat with any guy outside the business. Not at all.
I'm going to throw out some names to you, and you just comment whatever you want to say about them. Bruiser Brody?
Never liked the man at all. Very selfish. He would come into a territory. He had a mentality where he wanted to stick it to the promoters. So what he would do is he would screw up matches purposely or try to destroy business.
Right.
But he didn't realize there was a guy in that first match that was maybe making $50 that needed that to pay his car payment or maybe a child support payment someplace. And if Bruiser Brody kills that business, that takes that poor guy out of $50. And I believe when you're a top guy, you owe something to everybody on that card. To be professional and to make sure that you do it right. If you don't want to work for the guy, tell him that. But don't screw the other guys on the card, because they got to come back next week. You don't.
Abdul the Butcher.
Lazy. Couldn't do anything.
Right.
What could he do? It's a big
Savage.
fat guy with a
Fork.
with a fork.
Yeah. Jerry Lawler.
Fortunate. Very fortunate. He was raised in a small territory, and he's managed to survive all these years. Good hand. Good worker.
Did you ever work Memphis?
Yeah, a couple times.
With who was Jarrett running?
I worked it in 1965 for Nick Lewis. I also worked it for Jarrett with Bachwinkle and I. Yeah.
Did you know Jackie Fargo?
Yeah.
How's he like?
Good guy. Good guy. Just no money down there. Hillbilly mentality. They just don't pay you. No money. Most guys you see in Memphis are guys starting out or finishing up. No one goes there to make money. You went to Minneapolis, New York to make money.
Right. Jimmy Valiant.
Pig.
Billy Graham. Superstar. Billy Graham.
Great talker.
Don Morocco.
Good guy. Good weed. No. No, but good guy. Don's a good guy.
I don't know why I didn't bring it up earlier. King Kong Bundy. What was it like? Man,
Good
King
guy.
Kong Bundy?
He always wore the black suits, right?
Right.
And he, white hair and no hair, right? We got on a plane one day, the stewardess says to me, "What would you like to drink?" I said, "Bring me a scotch and water." I used to call him Shamu. So she said, "What would he like?" I said, "Bring him a pail of fish." And he leaned over on me like this. And all the way to San Francisco, my suit was wrinkled. But no, Bundy's a good guy.
Dr. G. David Schultz.
Schultz was Schultz was a redneck before rednecks were cool.
Huh. He was the original Steve Austin.
Yeah, but David went too far.
Right.
Yeah, he believed wrestling was real.
Were you there for the 2020 thing with?
Yeah.
Is it true that Vince put him up to that?
I don't know,
Right.
but I wouldn't certainly slap somebody from ABC unless I was told.
Speaking of that, like Fuji was in the background there. How was Mr. Fuji? Like I heard he was like the biggest ribber.
Oh, he was great. Fuji was great. You'd fall asleep on the airplanes. He'd paint your fingernails. He'd shave your eyebrows.
Right.
Oh yeah. Fuji was good.
Speaking of another rib, I don't know. It was back in the AWA days. I think it was Mad Dog Vachon and like maybe Harley Race. He opened up the plane doors.
No, Dog did that once.
Yeah. Were you there? Or?
I was supposed to be on that flight, but I didn't. That's when the AWA had their own private plane.
Mm-hmm.
I used to call Suicide One. And Greg Gagne told Dog to be at the airport at 4 o'clock. They were flying to Denver, Rapid City, Minneapolis. So Dog at the airport at 4 o'clock. The plane left at 3:30. Dog was mad. Dog got on the plane that night, and he was really mad because he had to pay his own way to go to, and he just felt insulted. So he opened the door, and the door, it had a catch. It would open with stairs that would go down, and then
Right.
the top would go up. The Dog opened that up and then wrapped the cord around his neck and threw the bag out, everything out of the plane. He just wanted to have something to do that night.
What like stories like that? How would you compare like wrestlers from like the 60s and 70s to wrestlers these days?
Oh, they were better in the 60s and 70s because they all rode in cars and they all got along. Now everybody, when they get off a plane, they first go get their own car, then they go to the gym, they go to their room, they work out, they go back and forth, they There's no camaraderie. You learn to work in the car. You learn to do interviews in the
Right.
car. You learn to talk in the car. Now these guys come from Gold Gyms just because they got more gas in them than a BP station. They think they're a big tough guy. I'm sorry, it don't work. And I've never seen anybody do gas or do it, but I know it happens in every form of life. Probably the FD, the guy delivering flowers is on the pizza guy from Papa John's on gas. Who knows? But I was going to take it one time when I first started the business.
What happened?
There was a thing called Diana Ball. And an old-time wrestler named Rocky Montero used to be a boxer. He told me, kid, don't take it. He said, it'll screw up your kidneys and your heart. I never did. I never did.
Speaking of drugs, like, I mean, what is your opinion on drugs? And also, maybe a different question. There's a lot of talk about drugs in wrestling these days. Was maybe not drugs back in the day, but how was drinking back in the 60s and 70s? I heard a lot of stories.
Well, people drank during the Depression.
Was it worse then than now, do you think? Or?
No. Milwaukee, there's a bar in every corner. All your life. There's always been. Actors have always drank. Baseball players, football players, everybody. After a baseball game, football game, there's beer in the locker rooms. Everybody drinks. No. There's always been that. People have always drank. Drugs now, the guys that smoke say themselves. The guys that do other stuff up their nose say themselves. They never flaunt it in the dressing room. They never talk to each other about it in front of me or anybody else. So that's kind of quiet, and that's what they do if they do it. I'm not saying they do or they don't. I don't know. But that's their business. But, everybody has a couple beers after a match. Everybody gets on the airplane after a flight. The Dodgers get on the plane and have a drink going home. Everybody does. I mean, if you don't, then what are you doing? Then you're hanging around with Tony Schiavone drinking Ovaltine at 9 o'clock. Reading a back edition of Hustler that no one knew you had. Seeing if your wife's in a back edition of Beaver Hunt.
Fritz von Erich, any?
Oh, I liked Fritz. He was a good. I knew Fritz in the '60s. Tragic story with his family and all the kids. And I didn't know David. I met Kevin one time. I didn't know the other two boys. I just knew Kerry from
Right.
WWF, and I knew Jack Fritz from the old days. And he was always a nice guy.
Bret Hart.
Bret Hart was always a nice guy to me too. He was always intense about his interviews, always wanted to know where it was going, what he had to say, what he was going to do, and very conscious about what he was doing, and no problem.
How do you feel about like what happened to him, like with Vince and the Owen thing, and then like with WCW? What's your take?
Well, I don't know the whole story. To me, the Owen thing is a tragedy. Owen was a very, very, very nice man. As I was leaving White Plains that afternoon, before we did the thing where I finished up, I was going across the street to a diner to get a sandwich, and Owen walked up next to me and he said, I heard this is your last night. I said, yeah. He said, why? I said, well, I just want to do something else. I'm tired. He said, well, it's going to be a big loss to us. And he shook my hand. And I thought, what a nice guy. He really was a nice guy. And not everybody came up to me and did it that night. I can remember Owen Hart doing it. I remember Jack Lanza with my friend from Forever did it. And Gorilla. And that was just about it. And Rene Goulet. Other than that, that was about it. What happened with Bret Hart and Vince? There's two ways to look at it. He didn't want to do the job for Michaels in Canada. Well, he's not winning nothing or losing nothing. It's a belt someone's giving you. Vince owns the belt. You do what the man tells you. Now, if you have it in your contract that says I have complete control, well, then Vince shouldn't have maybe given him that if he didn't want him to have complete control. Then there was a double cross. It's probably happened at every hairdresser shop you've seen, every body shop, every place in the world. Who knows? I wouldn't have gotten mad. I'd have put the guy over, got my money, and gone home. We're in this for money.
Exactly.
I knew guys for years that if you told me you give them $1,000 a week to do jobs, or I'll give you 500 to be the champion. Well, they'll take the championship because they had the belt. But they're losing 500 a week. But the guys don't understand sometimes.
Speaking of doing jobs, a couple people on prior shoot interviews said that they heard that with the Andre Hogan match that Andre maybe at the last minute was going to back out and not do jobs. Is there any truth to that?
No. No, Andre was, he wouldn't have done that to Vince McMahon. And he wouldn't have done it to the business. If Andre was going to beat you, he'd tell you. He don't have to trick you. He could beat you. I think Hogan was concerned that he was going to do the job, that Andre was going to do it or not. But I asked the boss, I said, what are we going to do? He said, don't worry.
Since Andre never did a job, who approached him to do the job?
Andre, it was Andre's idea.
Well,
Andre's idea. He realized, I believe, that this was his last big pay-per-view he could have ever gotten. And with who? Hogan. Hottest guy in the business, biggest guy in the business. And he asked Vince if I could be his manager because he trusted me. And that was a compliment. So, there was never nothing to do. Boss just said, don't worry about it. And if he wanted to beat Hogan, he was going to beat him. If he didn't, he was a professional. He made his money. That's what he wanted to do, is make his money on the way out. And be on the biggest one that he could be on.
speaking of guys that are big guys in the business, do you think if Goldberg was in WWF instead of WCW, he could be bigger than Austin?
Oh yeah, because he's bigger than Austin. He looks better than Austin. I mean, Austin's not a big guy. He just swears a lot. But Goldberg, yeah, I think it'd be different. Yeah. I don't think the people want Austin now as a heel.
No.
No.
They like him too much.
Yeah. I don't think there are heels anymore. They like characters now. They like to be entertained.
Lou Thez?
Lou won the belt in 1937. I was jumping from ball to ball, even becoming a bastard at that time. God, 37. Lou was always a nice guy to me. Lou was always a gentleman to me, and but his styles passed him by, and putting your elbow to the ear anymore, doing that don't work.
Right.
I don't even know what works anymore. But no, Lou's a nice man. He's a gentleman.
How about Bruno Sammartino?
Bruno's okay. He's bitter about the business. A lot of guys you got to understand something. If you're bitter about it, why didn't you get out of it? I mean, if you made nothing at it for 20 years, then you're a fool.
Right.
If you made money at it and bitch about it, shut up and keep it. I made money at it. I had fun. I don't like the way it ran because there was no hospitalization or pensions and that, but I had a good time. I had a lot of laughs with a bunch of good guys. And I broke my neck, and I had my knee operated on. I had nerve damage in my hand. But that could have happened working at a 7-Eleven. I'm married to an Italian woman. Her family could have killed me. So, doesn't matter. I made money doing what I wanted to do and had fun.
Now, Roddy Piper, we've talked to him a lot, and he talks about, making a union in wrestling. Do you ever see that happening?
No.
No.
Can't trust anybody. And at my stage in life now, no. There was talk about that years ago, but you couldn't trust anybody, and plus they'd blackball you. The promoters didn't want that. If you were making $5,000 a week someplace and didn't like working for Watts,
Right.
well, I'll go work for Eddie Gray and make $5,000. But if they keep you making $50 a week, you couldn't make that move because you had to pack your family up and your apartment and your tables and chairs and move to another territory and hope to get over.
Right.
They kept you on that money. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair. But you had a choice. You could have left.
Did you ever were approached to work WWF before, with Vince Sr.?
I called Vince Sr. for years. Every 6 months I talked to him. But he wouldn't use me because he had 3 guys. There was the Wizard,
Right.
Albano, and Blassie. And he didn't have enough to bring in a 4th manager. And I talked to him before he died. I went to Japan. And he said, Bobby, something big is happening, but I can't tell you what's going on. That's when the kid was taking over everything. And he says, just call me when you get back from Japan. And when I was in Japan, he died. And that's what happened. But no, I would have wanted to go there because you only had to do TV every 3 weeks, and then you got paid for every time your man was in. You didn't have to go to him.
That was a good deal.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
You talked about Japan and your neck. Exactly what happened?
Oh, there's a guy named Onita, and I was in a tag match, Hartley and I against Onita and Haku. And Haku slammed me, and Onita came off the top and dropped the leg like Hogan does.
Right.
But he landed in my face and took my head that way. And I was on the mat, and there was no place to go. And I broke 2 discs in my neck, and they had to eventually, I was 83. I didn't have the operation until 95 because I had no insurance. So when I went to work for Turner's, when I had insurance, to have my neck operation. And they told me it'd be 2 hours. I was in the operating room 7.5 hours. And they took 2 bones out of my hip and put it in my neck and cut off 2 discs, 5th and 6th. And it was really getting bad where my neck didn't hurt as much as my arm did. And I couldn't grip things. And I'm 56 now. And I was getting to the age where it was really bothering me. And that's why I quit managing. I just couldn't go out there, and when a guy got hit, I couldn't react and work because it hurt me to move. And people don't understand it. Well, you just, suck it up. Yeah, I sucked up for a lot of years, and I got tired of hurting. I'm sorry.
Speaking of Watts, did you ever work for him?
No.
No.
No. His territory worked every day, 7 days a week, and they
Well,
drove.
traveling.
And I didn't want to. I wanted to join the WWF, not the AAA. Yeah.
Thoughts on Detroit and the original Sheik?
Pardon?
What are your thoughts on working in Detroit, big time wrestling?
With the Sheik?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sheik.
He was my first friend in the business. In 1961, in Indianapolis, I was carrying jackets and setting the ring up. He'd give me his keys, and I'd go sit in his car. He had one of those double-door Lincolns, like
Right.
Kennedy was killed in. And I would go out and sit in his car, and he'd come out and give me $5 and talk to me. He didn't talk to anybody, and would always give me. Sometimes if he was late and was on last, he'd give me a ride to the bus stop, so I could catch the bus home, so I didn't have to hitchhike home. No, Sheik was okay with me.
Whatever happened to his promotion? Because it seemed like it was huge, and then it just...
Well, anybody has a 20-year run. Gagne had a 20-year run. Everybody does. You just run out of ideas and run out of talent. And you can't do the same disqualifications and the fire and blood every night.
Right.
For 20 years, it gets old. And it
Did
changes.
you see that was kind of innovative for that time, or was...
Oh,
was,
I thought...
was wrestling always kind of hardcore, but nobody ever really knew about it, like with the blood and the...
I don't think they knew how we got blood. They thought it was ketchup or capsules. But they never understood. If you had a capsule, where would you carry it?
Right.
Well, if you carried it in your trunks and got kicked there, you look like you were in your period.
Right.
I mean, the toughest species in this world are women. Think about it.
Why is that?
Who else do you know that bleeds for a week and lives?
It's true.
That's tough.
Besides the WF, what was your favorite promotion that you worked for?
The AWA.
AWA.
Yeah. Because you didn't work every day. You worked 3 or 4 days a week, and we were all in Minneapolis. It was like a family there. There was Rashke and Lanza and Bockwinkel and Stevens and Patterson and Remus, and we all played golf together. We all went out together. We all had parties at Christmas at each other's houses and Thanksgiving. It was really fun.
Do you have any regrets?
Do I have any regrets about the business?
Yes. Or any of your decisions that you've made? In the
Yeah.
business?
I probably wished I would have worked out more and got a little bigger and could have been the world's champion and made the same money and been screwed more. So it didn't really matter.
Right.
No, it didn't really matter. I probably wished I wished I would have stuck up more for myself and realized how valuable I was and how valuable some of the boys were. Promotion didn't think we were, but we were. And we should have had, before a union, I think we should have had residuals. We should have had payment off the TV shows.
Right.
And we don't have nothing. We didn't know.
Did you ever work with Jim Barnett?
Yeah. Worked for him in 79 in Georgia, and I worked for him in when I went back to WCW, whoever ran it then.
Can you do an impersonation? We've had like 10 straight shoot interviews that everybody impersonates him.
There's one catchphrase.
My boy.
There it is.
No, did Jim Barnett would have to rip my shirt off and pretend I was a lumberjack. That's it. Now, when he was a kid, where do you think the pacifier went? Just think about it. I don't know. Maybe I'm just guessing.
There's one guy that you never got to manage that you would have liked to manage. Who would that guy be?
Hogan.
Hogan.
Sure. The money. That's where the money would have been.
It'd be
He was
great.
easy to travel with. He was no problem. Really the easiest guy in the world.
If he was a heel and you were with him, it would be amazing.
Yeah.
Do you still talk to him?
No. I don't really talk to anybody. He was down the street from me. We only live about a mile from each other.
Really?
But, I've seen so many guys naked. When I'm home, I just want to be with my family. There's nothing else to talk about anymore. What are you going to do? You're going to wind up bitching about some other promotion or why things aren't going right. It's not necessary anymore.
Thoughts on The Rock? Top guys like Triple H in the business.
Triple H, I love the guy. He really, really dedicates himself like he cares about what he does.
He's a student of the game.
Pardon?
He's a student of the
Yeah,
game.
that's it. I wish you would lose the water and the black trunks and black boots, because that's blah to me. I wish he'd have a little more color.
Right.
If he had blonder hair with a little more flourish, I like that. The Rock, I think, is great. I like the way he talks and all that. But then you got to look at Hogan and Vince. Could Vince have done it without Hogan? Could Hogan have been there without Vince? Vince would have done it without Hogan, I believe, because Vince was that smart. Hogan probably would have done it without Vince. Together, it worked.
In closing, is there anything you want to say to your fans out there that you never had a chance to say to them?
Yeah. A lot of the guys are going to be mad because I'm writing a book and I'm talking about work and heels and baby faces and maybe expose the business. But it's very simple. The magic is over. Everyone knows how we do the tricks. God bless the memories, and God bless the fans, and God bless America.
Thank you very, very much for being here today.
Now who pays me for this son of a...